Welcome, I'm Tricia Lemon and covering several videos around my dreams of the awakening feminine consciousness. I hope you've been following some of them and getting to grips with the idea that these dreams are signposts to a spiritual awakening, and they're showing symbols around myths and our understanding of feminine consciousness and awakening. I'll sort that little scraggly bit of hair out. And awakening. Today I'm just going to jump straight into this dream. It's very intriguing, and as I've gone through the awakening, more of this dream has come into a deeper consciousness with me, and what I'm finding as I'm working through these dreams and videos is I'm beginning to see patterns and understanding as I look back and reflect them. So actually doing these videos is a really good exercise for me as well. So let's jump straight in there. In this dream there is a cat, and the cat is being spoon-fed food. And that's the dream. It's not, it's not got lots of other things going on in the dream. That was the dream. But let's dive in and take a look at this and what are the reflections. To me, this is about the feminine has become domesticated. So you can literally think about being spoon-fed. There's lots of things you can be being spoon-fed. You can be obviously spoon-fed food, but you can be spoon-fed what it is to be human, or what it is to have particular behaviours that they're not authentic ways of living, but following patterns, and in other words you are spoon-fed. And as a society, we're all part of that society, so it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, society spoon-fed us, but over thousands of years society has spoon-fed us. It's told us this is who we are, this is how we should be, and this is how we should behave, and this is what a woman is, and this is how she should be, and this is how she should behave. Well, where does all that come from, and what does that mean in terms of what have we lost in our feminineness, and why has that happened? Well, lots of fantastic questions in there. Can't profess to answer them all. I'll have a go. So over thousands of years, 4, 5, whatever, thousands of years, we've all been programmed by patriarchy. Particularly, I'm focusing on the feminine here, how patriarchy has programmed the feminine mind, and that does come from the masculine, not just necessarily men, but it comes from the masculine energy, or you might call that masculine energy a strong emphasis on logic and survival rather than the feminine consciousness. So you need to hold that and understand that, because it is quite complex to try and be able to bring that into your own consciousness, what that means. So what I'm trying to say is we have been programmed by patriarchy over thousands and thousands of years, and some of this is to do with survival, and obviously some of it's to do with the evolution of humanity. The fact that that's gone on for thousands of years, we can't sit there and say, oh, well, that's all wrong, and the masculine's all bad, and make those kind of definitions. The patriarchy is what it is, and it's coming to fruition for a reason, but perhaps we're coming to the end of that, and I will explore that in future videos, what that might look like. So let's just go back to the cat dream and the lost feminine. And so I said, in the Western world, what's happened is the feminine has been buried and she has been forgotten. And if you remember in my last dream I talked about the feminine and coming from Creek, and where the feminine was worshipped. Over the patriarchy, the feminine has been pushed very deep into our subconscious, and she's still there. She hasn't gone, she's still there, but she isn't part of our daily lives in terms of how we go about in society. It's very much a masculine energy based society, and I think women tend to think that the masculine has dominated, and it has, but women also are part of that patriarchy, and that's sometimes quite difficult to understand that, but it does happen, and women have given up that deeper femininity to become and to survive in a patriarchal world. So some of it is about survival. So as I said, we have become dominated by logic or science or all of those things. And so this was an interesting dream because there was a lot going on now, as I've said in previous. There was a lot happening inside me around the masculine energy becoming into my own consciousness, and particularly around the wounded masculine. But particularly after this dream and a few other dreams, I started to feel a very, very, very deep grief within me. And I would wake up in the middle of the night several times for 3 or 4 days, just crying, real deep grief. I just didn't understand where it came from. I spend my day just crying. It was like this grief has been held inside of me. When I looked at that grief and tried to understand that grief, it never felt like it was Trisha's grief, i.e., perhaps a grief over the death of a parent or a child or someone you love, or that kind of bereavement. It was a very, very deep grief, and the crying was relentless. And to wake up crying in your dream of itself is quite a profound feeling for a human being to feel that, to wake up crying in a dream. And as I said, that went on for several days, and there was some very deep emotional pain there, as I said, that didn't feel like it belonged to me. It really felt like it belonged to a deeper part of me, in terms of this lost feminine connection. So what was some of that about? Is it about rejection? Is it about the feminine being rejection? Did I reject my own feminine nature at some time? Or is that just how the patriarchy had wired me up? And I kind of came to that conclusion that I'd been programmed that way, that's how I had, over the years, or over thousands of years, the feminine had become programmed. And I think if you ever read any Carl Jung, that would be what he might call the collective unconscious. In other words, it's so deep within us and we don't see it until it's ready to be seen. As I said, that's a very small dream, but a lot of feminine consciousness and wounding of the feminine was being expressed during that dream. A year later, and I've done a lot more inner work, and there's lots more to come, and I'll share that in the dreams. I did have another dream about cat. And interestingly, I'm not really a cat lover, actually. I'm quite allergic to them, so can't go near them. But I had another dream about a cat. And in this dream, my mouth was open, and in my jaw was the head of a very beautiful leopard, some type of wild cat, and she was beautiful. And as I said, her head was in my jaw. And if you think about the significance of that for a wild cat, the jaw is a very powerful tool for that cat. It carries its babies around, it kills things, it obviously eats its food in that way. So it has that power to kill, but it also has that power to be very nurturing, the way that it carries its young around. And in that dream, in the second dream, which I said came a year later, this is majestic. This cat is so beautiful, and it follows its own instincts. And that is around the cat in her own power. She has her own power. She can be nurturing, and she can also obviously kill, because she has to obviously feed herself and feed her animals. But also she's very good at defending her own boundaries. A wild cat will defend her own boundaries in many ways. That's very important for a cat. So for me, the second dream was showing me that I was actually coming into my own natural instincts and my own natural feminine behaviours. So I've called that, you could say, I can learn to purr and I can learn to growl. But the difference is when you think about the feminine consciousness, or you think about a cat, a cat or a wild animal has no logic. It does not think in logic. It's very natural in terms of how it flows and how it lives its life. So taking that forward around my own feminine nature, these two dreams, one was showing me right at the beginning of the descent into the feminine, is that I'd been programmed to be spoon-fed. I just take on board what everybody's told me or what I believe society expects of me. And that the second dream, after perhaps a year of inner work and more of my Kundalini awakening, I was moving into my own feminine nature. And I did see differences in how I acted and how I behaved and what that meant, how I interacted with other people. That's it for today. That's the cat dream, and I will follow that up soon with more of Trisha's awakening feminine consciousness and take you on that trip. And hopefully, if you are having a spiritual awakening, you will see some signposts in there which may be helpful for you in terms of understanding where you are on that trip. And if you're looking at it because you're really interested in feminine consciousness, I would suggest from this dream is really to stop and think about how you try and please other people and how or where you've lost that deeper understanding of your own feminine nature. One of the areas where you can really test that out is when you start using a lot of logic in your life or a lot of rationality. And that's one of the indications that you're very strong in that masculine brain, is looking at rationalizing things and seeing things in black and white rather than in your feminine nature. On that note, I wish you well and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.